quick disclaimer, this video is mainly about just how you can farm efficiently. So it's not going to be everything like completely to do with relics. I'll cover most stuff that I think you need to know, but I won't cover anything that is very learned. It's very intuitive. Either way, I hope you guys find it helpful and enjoy. What's up YouTube? My name is Abyss, and in today's video we are going over a relic guide that I've made just to kind of teach people what best to use on characters. It won't be like a specific one for every character because that would take way too long, but this is to give you the general idea on everything you kind of need to know about relics. This won't go over the most advanced stuff, but I will hint at some things. But yeah, either way, hope you guys enjoy. If you do, leave a like. If it was helpful, also leave a like, and head over to the Discord if you have any other questions. We have a help channel there, and me and the members in the Discord are more than willing to help. This guide is aimed towards those that are newer to Honkai style, or just generally more casual. And if you know your stuff, maybe you might have forgotten something, and that can help as well. Let's get on to slide 2. Now, I don't have PowerPoint because apparently you have to pay for that shit. But okay, let's talk about, we know how to get relics, right? We know about caverns, we know about chests. Let's talk about rolling them, which I don't feel like people talk about a lot, and there isn't much to know about them. Might as well go over it if we're talking about relics. Let's start off with what is good to roll. Now, it does vary from set to set. So here we go, I've got the new set, for example, the new crit rate set that's come out, and I've rolled this piece. It has crit rate, it has crit damage. These are the two stats I'm looking for on this set. So if it rolls into any of those, which luckily it did, I would obviously benefit from that. Now, each set obviously has specific substats that you're looking for that fit with the set, right? So if you pick up like the outgoing healing set, which I don't think anyone should farm, but if you pick that up, you're not going to be looking for any crit stat really, you're not looking for that. But there are cases where you'll roll a piece and it can be used as an off piece if it just happens to roll well. Now, I haven't mentioned this in this, but there's ways to roll relics to be safe, but that involves, you know, sacrificing the option to salvage, which we'll talk about in a bit. Say for example, the Forge set that I've got here, I've rolled it because it has two substats that I want, but this set isn't generally what we're looking for and the main stat isn't either, right? But the substats are just that good. So again, like I said earlier, you can see my Sparkle has this piece. Sparkle typically wouldn't have Forge set. You won't see that in guides very often, but I think it's a great set for her because it gives her speed, and that's what I'm looking for. So even though the main stat's bad, it's rolled all the stats or the substats that I want, so I've taken that piece and I've kept it. Let's talk about Salvaging Relics, which I just mentioned earlier. So what is salvaging? It only really comes across into your game when you unlock 5-star relics. Before that, you can't really salvage because it just becomes relic XP. So instead of using your relics as XP, you can use them as relic remains. So you salvage them and you get 10 relic remains per piece. When you get 100 of these, you can turn it into a relic and have another chance at getting something good. So when do you salvage? I've got two examples on the right here. The one with the red border is what I'm going to salvage. I've seen the set that it has, so it's the Scholar of Erudition, oh my god, whatever it is, right? Buffs crit rate and all that. I don't need outgoing healing, and I don't need any of those substats, so I'm just going to get rid of it. Whereas we've got the Ordeal set headpiece here, and it's rolled crit damage, which is what I'm looking for. It's one of the two things I'm looking for. The other thing I want is speed. So if I roll this, I'm getting rid of my chance to salvage it. It will still be able to be used as XP, but I cannot get relic remains from it. But either way, if it rolls speed, I'll be happy if it starts rolling into speed and crit damage. If it doesn't, then it will just be used as XP. Now, I don't mention this, when it comes to rolling relics, I level them up in portions as you should. There's an option on StarL where you can do that. If we just go to a relic piece right here, if I have any, let's say I want to level this up, right? I have no clue what it says, but you have this, so it'll only go to +3, 9, or 6, 9, 12. I recommend doing that. See how the stats are rolling. If it rolls into something you want, keep going. If it starts to roll a lot into something you don't want, if you get it to +9 and you've got no substat that you want, it might be worth giving up on that piece. Now, relic rolling is all luck based, so you know, you can't really decide, and there's no guaranteed way to get what you're looking for. There is something called relic manipulation. You know, whenever you're leveling up relics, you take that risk, and sometimes it might turn trash, even if you have like crazy good substats. That's just how it is. But at least you've got XP out of that. Let's move on to the next slide, or the next slide that I have, which is the self-modeling resin. Please do up the top button. This shirt does not fit me. I cannot do it. I don't want to use up like my good shirts.
10 seconds later.
Anyways, self-modeling resin. This is what you can get from the battle pass, or you can get it from a couple of events. But these are pretty rare, so you want to be careful when you're using them. It lets you pick a main stat of your choice of whatever you pick. So the main time you would use this is either on boots for speed boots, or on the body piece for crit damage or crit rate, or on the rope. So for Planar Ornaments it'll be on the rope, and you can get energy regeneration rate. Fucking hell, that's a long thing to say. Energy regen ropes are usually the most common thing you'd go for with this, because those are the hardest to get. So this is when I would use my self-modeling resin. If you're wondering about just crafting relics without using these, then these are the 8 sets that I would recommend. I think we've got 4 Planar Ornaments and 4 relics. I would use these on whenever you're farming for something, right? You usually want to farm efficiently, and if there's any other caverns that offers another piece that you don't want or you'll never need, which we'll cover, that's when I would say crafting is the most useful. Let's move on to our first cavern, which is Path of Gelid Wind. This is one that you unlock in the Herd space station. I'm not going to remember where every single one is, but this is one of the earlier on ones that you get. There's notation for the efficiency. This is what the bad or whatever it says will be notating. Starting off with the ice set, there is a couple of ice DPS units. However, Misha is the only one that still has this as the best in slot. Best in slot is a term I might use a lot. That just means it's the best option for this character. So this ice damage set, it boosts ice damage, and whenever the character ultimates, crit damage increases. And this lasts for 2 turns, as you can see there. It's an okay set, but farming for it is a bit awkward. Now the other set that's paired with this is the Eagle of Twilight Line. So this is the Eagle set. It offers wind damage, which is not the reason why anyone uses this set. The reason why people use this set and farm for it is the 4-piece effect. So whenever your character ults, they get action advance. Action advance just means they take their turn sooner. When it comes to this set, I would say this is an advanced set, so you won't really make use of this early on, and if you're a more casual player, I don't recommend farming for this. It's kind of a waste of time. There are a couple of DPS that can benefit from it, but it's mainly the supports that you want to use this on. Getting their turns faster can help with rotations, can help with getting 0 cycles, etc. It is not the set that you go for wind DPS, for example. The current ones that we have all have ones that are better for them. But yeah, this is just your 0 cyclers. If you're not one of those and you're not a tryhard, don't go for it. It's not worth it. Next up, we've got the Path of Jabbing Punch. The first set is the physical set, which is the Champion of Streetwise Boxing. This is for your physical units. However, most of them, even though they would benefit from this set, I still don't think this set is worth farming for. As I say here, limited to a few physical units, still not advised to farm for them. A lot of these units are pretty outdated. And even with Clara, for example, she has an easier access option that is more efficient to farm. Then we have paired with that Thief of Shooting Meteor. This is a break effect set, so it buffs break effect, and then the 4-piece buffs break effect even further, and it gives you a bit of extra energy whenever you break too. This set is actually pretty decent. You get this set from chests a lot early on, and it's a great early option to have. But again, don't recommend farming this cavern just because it's not that valuable later on. So as you can see, there's some newer units here that do benefit from this set. We have Boot Hill, not his best in slot, but it's a decent one if you have pieces already. Don't recommend farming this set particularly for him. Then we have Harmony Trailblazer, who typically runs on 4-piece Watchmaker or 2-piece of other break relic. And then we got Runmei. Again, Watchmaker set, 4-piece is best on her, and then you can mix with 2-piece break. Next up is Path of Drifting. This is one of the worst caverns, if not the worst in the entire game. You should never be farming this ever. But you might be thinking, Abyss, it says healing. It says skill point, that's good. Skill point at the beginning of battle, not that worth it. You can get away with using your basic attack on a healer on the first turn. There is a very, very few situations where you ever need to skill or heal up with your healer. Skill point is not a good sacrifice for the other stats that you could be building on, especially if you're more casual. I would say once you've matured to the point where you don't need advice from me as much, then you can choose to waste time farming for this. But again, getting an end game build with this set is generally too time consuming and uses up too much Trailblaze power. The Musketeer set is still pretty decent as a 2-piece. The 4-piece is decent as well, but I don't think it's that necessary. There's only 2 units that really benefit from it, which are cut off again. I don't know why this is so cut off. I guess the slideshow is bigger than I thought. Either way, there's only 2 units that really benefit from it, and it is their best in slot. There's other ways to get this set, like salvaging, doing your Echo of War, which is your weekly boss, and there's a couple other ways, but salvaging is the main way I'd recommend doing it. Next up, we have Path of Providence. Now, this one I used to say was just okay, but now I would say it's kind of bad. Both sets are like decent on characters, but I think there's more efficient ways to farm now. So let's start off with the less impressive seeming one, which is God of Wuthering Snow. The 2-piece just reduces damage taken by your character, and then the 4-piece no one uses. So you can read it there, I'm not going to read it out. No characters benefit from the 4-piece. The 2-piece can work well on some preservation units, and just make some of your supports a bit more tanky, which is what you could need in some situations. Next up is the Quantum set, Genius of Brilliant Stars. Increases quantum damage, which is great, and the 4-piece lets you ignore defense, which is pretty rare to find. It is slightly different to Death Shred, but either way, it's still pretty good. And then if the enemy is quantum weak, if you're using any of these characters, chances are you get to ignore an extra 10% of defense. So with a Death Shred character, so Pella, Silverwolf, Black Swan as well, they will contribute to that, and you'll do more damage because you're ignoring and getting rid of more defense. This set can be used on other DPS, which is why I used to recommend farming at least one good 4-piece, so you can like move that across whatever DPS you have that's crit based. I think some break units could use it. The Super Break set offers that defense ignore as well, so it's not worth it. But crit DPS, yeah, they can use this set. It's not going to be the best in stock, but it'll be pretty damn good. Quick note as well about Zila is that in most cases without Death Shred, the new Scholar of Erudition set is her best in slot. But this one, if there is Quantum Weak and you have that Death Shred, it is better. Next up we have the Knight of Purity Palace. This increases your defense by 15%, and the 4-piece increases the max damage taken by the shields that the character provides. No characters really benefit from the 4-piece, even Aventurine doesn't. Of course it's nice on him, but I don't recommend it, just because farming this set is pretty bad. If you have some 2-piece lying around, go for it. You can put it on him, you can put it on Japad, you can put it on even supports, whatever you need to make it a little bit more tanky, but I don't recommend farming it. Alongside that, when you're farming, you will get the Band of Sizzling Thunder. This set used to be alright. It was the every lightning DPS or damage dealer's best in slot set, but it isn't anymore. It's very outdated, whilst you can still use it on some characters. And honestly, I don't think the percentages vary that much. I think it's like 5 to 10% at worst, like worse than whatever their best in slot is. It still doesn't justify farming it. Like, why would you farm a set that you know isn't the best? So it's kind of like, if you have these lying around, sure, use them. If you don't, no point going for them. But yeah, Serval used to be able to make use of it, Jing Yuan as well, and Kafka. But yeah, I'll be very pissed if your Kafka has this set. Alright, there's no reason for it. There's a better set for her, and she deserves it, okay? But yeah, I gave that one worst. And did I give that one worst actually? No, I gave this one bad, because this one is worse. First set in Path of Conflaguration is the Fire of Lava Forging. This increases fire damage. You get extra skill damage, which is okay. There's other sets that benefit that more. Also, the ult just increases fire damage. Not even fire DPS benefit from this as best in slot. It sucks. It's shit. Don't farm it ever. Next up is Wastelander of Banditry Desert. Now, this is the imaginary damage dealer set, but I again don't recognize or recommend farming this. The actual 4-piece effect isn't too bad, so it's still viable on these characters that I've shown below. Welt, if you're building a crit DPS Welt, Danhung and March on a crit build as well, but it's not March's best in slot, it's not Danhung's best in slot, and it definitely isn't Welt's best in slot. Next up we've got Path of Elixir Seekers. This is the first good one I have rated good. We've got Longevous Disciple up first. So this set was kind of initially made for Blade, but there's a couple other units that can benefit from this set. It's mostly for the 2-piece that you really use this set and farm for it. So a lot of supports and sustains can just use 2-piece of this set, 2-piece of that set, and you're sorted really. But anyway, increases max HP. So for your HP scalers, so your healers, and your Fushuen, your Blade. Clara's not a HP scaler, but she loves HP because she's getting hit a lot. Or Svarog. It's basically just Blade and Clara that benefit from the 4-piece. You could argue Unli does as well, but I wouldn't recommend her on this set. But the 2-piece is just super useful, makes your supports and healers more tanky, gives them more scaling. And then the other set that you can farm alongside this one is Messenger Traversing Hackerspace. The Hackerspace set. This just increases speed, which is the main reason why you'd want it. The 4-piece is also pretty good. It can be best in slot on some characters. It was hard to think of them now because the new Ordeal set, which also buffs speed, is probably all of these characters best in slot, apart from Jiao Cho and Silverwolf, but Sparkle and Bronya, for example. 2-piece effect, generally pretty good across all characters other than your TPS, who will want some sort of damage, buffing 2-piece or 4-piece effect. Just a generally good set that you have access to fairly early, because you get it in Genjo, so you should be able to farm it. And if you are going to farm anything, this lets you build out most characters. Next up is another good cavern to farm, and that is the Path of Darkness. This one pissed me off because the text for this is so long. Okay, so to kind of sum it up, you increase attack with how many follow-ups you do, you get tons of follow-ups, so it goes on your follow-up units, they get more attack, and then eventually they use up all of that after however many turns, right? So follow-up units are going to benefit from this set. Your Topaz, your Jing Yuan, your Himiko and Herta, they're all going to love this set. Even the 2-piece can work on characters like Aventurine, Ratio, and any other follow-up units that you have, but eventually you will want their best in slot. But you can still farm these for these characters, it's still their best. The follow-up meta is still here, so, you know, it's pretty worth it. The Prisoner in Deep Confinement. So this is the other set that you get when you're farming for, or in this cavern, and it offers you attack percent, which is always nice for your DPS characters and for your dot characters, which is what this set mainly focuses on. And for every dot on a character, you get to ignore a certain amount of defense, and that stacks 3 times, so you get up to 18%. So the 2-piece effect, great on attack scaling supports and sustains, so Luocha. The Link Shot also scales off attack as well, but not so much. But it works on your dot characters, especially the 4-piece, and then the 2-piece can go on like whatever DPS that you have that isn't fully leveled yet. And if you happen to get like a double crit piece, you can level that up and it could roll really well, and you can still use it until you get whatever their best in slot set is. So there's a difference when it comes to farming, which I didn't emphasize enough, I don't think. But when you're farming for a character, you should farm their best in slot. However, if you're just farming for other characters and you pick up a piece, you can use it as an off piece or an off 2-set piece, so you get the 2-piece effect, and they can still use that as a holdover until you get their best in slot. But yeah, all the dot characters, your Kafka, your Black Swan, Gunaifen, Sampo, Luca, whoever, right? They can use this. And if we ever get any other dot units, Hoyoverse, please. We're dying, bro. The dot fans are dying. But yeah, there's a couple other characters that can use this set as well. It's pretty good. Death Ignore, again, is always nice to have. Next up, we have a very long description again. So we have the Pioneer set and the Watchmaker set. This is another set that I would rate as good. There's a couple of units that really benefit from this set. Ratio, everyone got that for free. If you didn't get Ratio for free, I don't really recommend pulling him. He's not bad, but I think there's better units that are easier to build. Ratio, if you did get him for free, he can use this set, he loves it, because his kit needs debuffs anyways. You've got Akron, again, another character that needs debuffs to work well, so they're going to benefit from that on top. We've got Mose. Mose adds a debuff himself, and he kind of works well in teams that already have debuffs as well. And then we've got Aventurine as well. Aventurine adds his own debuff with his ult, and if you pick up his Light Cone, then he does it on his talent follow-up thing as well. These are just some units that benefit from it. There's a couple others, but I don't want to mention them, but they only work depending on if your team has debuffers in them. Next up is the Watchmaker set. This is what you would put on either your Ranmei or your Harmony MC. I recommend Ranmei because Ranmei gets used in more teams, so it's less effort to farm it for her. However, if you want to run on both, that's viable if you're not getting full uptime on her ult. Gallagher can use the 2-piece, he can't use the 4-piece. The 4-piece effect, for it to activate, the ult needs to be used on characters. If it is an attack, it does not get the benefit and you cannot use it. Well, you can equip it, but you won't get the buff. So Linkshot and Gallagher would benefit from the 2-piece. There's other break units as well that would benefit from 2-piece, like Boothill, but it's not his best in slot. Next up, we have Path of Cavalier. This is another good set, or good cavern, that I would recommend farming. We've got 2 sets that are pretty useful. They're not crazy, but they're pretty useful. Iron Cavalry against the Scourge, increases break effect. When the wearer's break effect is above 150, which it would be in a break team, you get to ignore 10% defense. Again, defense ignore is pretty damn good. When you're dealing super break damage and your break effect is above to 50%, which can be activated in some teams with a break team, tons of break buffs are happening there, so that's more likely than you expect. The super break damage ignores even more defense. So again, really good to have, great to have on characters like Rapper, who's a new break unit, Firefly, Linkshot can benefit from the 4-piece as well. If you want to run a DPS that does a lot of toughness bar damage or attacks a lot, so Himiko is an example of that, you can run this set on her and build her on a break build. Tons of units are easy to use on super break, so I think every account should have at least one set that is good. Substats to aim for are just speed and break effect. That's all you need on this set, and a couple of units might need effect hit rate, but it's not really mandatory. Then we've got the Windsoaring Valorous. This set is decent, I will say. It's great on Phase Out, it's pretty damn good on only 2. I think it's both of their best in slot. It's decent on some other follow-up units like Topaz, and the 2-piece effect is great on Robin, on Luocha, on any other attack scaling support / sustains. It increases ult damage whenever the character uses a follow-up. So Fei Zhao activates this all the time, Yini activates this all the time as well. Next up we have the newest cavern that's been added, which is the Path of Uncertainty, but you can be certain it's a damn good set to farm. It is really damn good. So the 2-piece effect for the Ordeal set, which is what I'm going to call it, just buffs your speed. Always nice to have. I love having speed. It makes building characters so much easier, especially early on, which you won't really have access to this super early on just because of where it's placed. But if you're not fully leveled, I still think it's a great set to go for. And if you are, it's a very, very good set to go for. The 4-piece effect of this set, whenever you use your skill or ultimate on one ally, that's key. So if it's like a group buff, it won't work. So Robin won't get the benefit, Ron May won't, characters like those. However, Sparkle's skill does, Luocha's skill does, Bronya's skill, Tingyun's skill and her ult does, and not Sunday. This is not Sunday's set, and it is definitely, the design was not for Sunday, okay? Because I have no clue what Sunday does. Okay, it's a lot of characters' new best in slot set just for the speed, but also now because it gives you crit damage just for using your skill on a character. You can imagine how well that goes. As for the Scholar Lost in Erudition set, just the 2-piece alone makes this an incredible set. An extra 8% crit rate is always nice to have. Crit rate is probably one of the hardest stats to build on a crit DPS, and although crit is kind of becoming like no one just wants a regular crit damage dealer, you want a follow-up unit or you want a break unit. But even your follow-up units can benefit from the 2-piece crit. For the 4-piece, the characters I've shown here will benefit from it, right? But there's some other characters as well that can benefit from it, and just the 2-piece again. The 2-piece crit rate buff is just so nice to have. Alleviating crit rate needs is just so much nicer, and it's often easier to get more crit damage than it is crit rate, at least in my experience and a lot of others, especially if you want to run like a crit damage body. So yeah, great set to farm. Both of these are super useful on a ton of characters, so you might as well go for it. Next up we have are Planar Ornaments. So Planar Ornaments, you get these from Simulated Universe, so make sure you're unlocking all of your worlds, doing it at the normal one first, and then you can do it at Divergent Universe after you've unlocked everything. Base Healing Station. This is a very outdated set, but it increases attack, and when your speed is above 120, you get more attack. This can be used on some of your dot characters early on, but there is a set that replaces this. It's also good on a couple of attack scaling supports / sustain, particularly Robin, Luocha. Actually, I wouldn't recommend this on Robin, to be honest. There's another set that's better, but Tingyun as well. Then we have Fleet of the Aegis. This can go on your supports as well. It's no one's best in slot, just like the other one, but it's pretty good on characters that either need HP, not damage dealers that need HP though. Someone like your Fushuen or your healers, or just a character that you want to make them tanky and also give attack to the rest of your team. So that's why I put Yukong, but other supports can go in there as well. Next up is the Smelted Heart. I don't even know if it's called Caverns anymore. What is it called? World, I guess? I don't know. But yeah, this is a pretty good one to farm. We've got the break meta here, so everyone benefits from Talia. Not everyone literally, but anyone that you want to run break will benefit from Talia, with super break being so prevalent right now. Tons of units can benefit from it, particularly Boot Hill, it's his best in slot. Harmony MC, it's their best in slot. Rapper, it's probably their best in slot as well. Ranmei, I would recommend Von Whack on her as well, which is why she's in there. It depends how you build her. If you're building a fast Ranmei, she would want Talia. If you're not building a fast Ranmei, then I would say Von Whack. How it works is, increases your break effect by 16 flat, and then if you reach 145 speed, which can be a bit tough, then you get an extra 20% break effect on top of that. So up to 36%, which is pretty good. Next up we have Von Whack. So Von Whack increases energy regen, which is pretty, I would say pretty rare, but we have like 3 sets now that buff that. Their activation requirement for the bonus effect is just reaching 120 speed, so pretty easy to get, and you get an action advance at the start of battle. So this means you're getting pushed forward at the start, which will allow some of your slower built characters to get their turn. It's really good on buffing characters and some debuffers, but mainly the buffers, so they activate their buff early on and you're not wasting any turns attacking and not being buffed. The main ones I recommend are Robin and Ranmei. Tingyun not so much because you typically run her fast anyway, and Bronya is the same. Typically you would run her fast, but if you're not and you want her to be faster, then you can use it. Next up we've got Gentle Words. These two pieces, or these two Planar Ornament sets, are pretty trash. The Pan Cosmic set does give some effect hit rate and it buffs attack depending on how much effect hit rate your character has. So there's actually a couple of units that can benefit from this. We've got Silverwolf, Jiao Cho, Black Swan, Pella. Pella doesn't really need the attack, but she could do with extra effect hit rate. Same with Silverwolf, she doesn't really need the attack. Jiao Cho, I guess you could for extra dot damage, but that's not his main purpose. The first 3 units that I've listed here need pretty high requirements for effect hit rate. Silverwolf is the lowest of these 3, and she needs like 96 or something. Then you got Jiao Cho that needs something crazy like 140 or something, and Black Swan needs 120. Pella only needs like 64. So you can get by with just like a effect hit rate body, but she can use this set. So that's your differentiator. This set just sucks. There's no one that uses it. It's shit. Next up, we've got the Permafrost world. This offers Belobog and Inert Salsoto. Belobog set only has a couple of units that really benefit because we don't have a lot of preservation units or defense scaling units we've just got March, Japard, and Aventurine. This set's mainly designed around March and Japard. Aventurine can benefit from the 15% defense that you get initially, but he will never have 50% effect hit rate, or he shouldn't, and it's not worth it just for 15% defense. Not really needed at all, doesn't really provide much of a good buff here. However, the inert Salsoto is what kind of makes this world worth farming. Crit rate buff, always nice, 8% is pretty huge, but there's other sets that buff a little bit more. We also have a ultimate damage boost and a follow-up damage boost. So it's great on your follow-up units, and it's great on any unit that relies heavily on their ultimate for their damage. And if you have a unit that needs both, then obviously they're going to want it. In this case, it is Yunli. However, Himiko, Jingyuan, and even Akron and Argenti can also benefit from this. Next up is the Fruit of Evil world. This is great. I don't know if I've listed anything else as great, but this one is really good. It lets you build a lot of crit DPS, and it lets you build a lot of supports. So we'll start off with Rooted Arena. Gives you 8% crit rate, just like in that Salsoto. However, whenever you reach 70%, which you should be doing endgame, you get to do an extra 20% damage on your basic attacks and your skills. So any units that use these as their primary source of damage, so Blade, Danheng, IL, March, Jingliu, they all use their basic attack apart from Jingliu, she uses her skill. But that's a significant portion of their damage, and extra 20% damage bonus for that is great. Plus, you know, crit DPS, extra crit rate, who doesn't want that? Broken Keel provides some effect res, only 10%, but it's still nice to have. And then once you reach 30, you get an extra 10% crit damage for the rest of your team. Pretty nice. 10% isn't anything major, but an extra bit is an extra bit, you know? And, you know, effect res, just so you're not getting stunned. That way you're not missing out on chances to apply your buff. Works well on Tingyan, it works well on Aventurine. Pella kind of benefits from it, just for the effect res. No one, it's not really like best in slot. It doesn't benefit a character like their kit wise, it's just nice to have. Fushrine as well, not exactly a best in slot, but it's still pretty good on it. Next up we have Pouring Blades. This one's okay. I know there is an energy regen set, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Let's start off with the Glamoth set. This buffs attack by 12% and it buffs damage depending on your speed. So if you reach 135 speed, you get a 12% damage buff, and if you reach 160 you get 18%. This is pretty good, especially on your dot characters. There's a couple of crit DPS that can benefit from this, but it will not be their best in slot. It is the best in slot of every dot character that we have. It's okay if you get like double crit on physical damage or whatever, you can put that on a physical damage dealer, just as an example. Then we've got the Penacony set, which offers energy regen, which is nice. If you have two characters on the same team with the same type, so as you can see below, we've got Wind, Ho-Ho, and Blade. If you give it to Ho-Ho, it will buff Blade's damage by 10%, which is a bit extra if you need it. However, it kind of doesn't work like that all the time. Like, you won't have that set up always. So here's like probably the more common options I would suggest, or that you're more likely to have, but again, not worth it. If we're looking for energy regen, we've got the Von Weck set, which lets you go first as well. So in cases where you need to apply a buff or whatever, it's great. But there's another set that we'll talk about later that's just come out that offers energy regen, and it also offers an attack buff. But yeah, a few practical uses, but it's not a bad set. Next up, we have To Sweet Dreams that has the Izumo set and the Sigonia set. Izumo buffs attack and it buffs crit rate if you have an ally of the same path. 2 Nihility units, 2 Erudition units, 2 Destruction units, 2 Hunt units. Those are the main paths that you will have a dual DPS team comp. The Nihility one only works for Akron. So if you have Akron with another Nihility, which you should, particularly Jiaocho if you have him, she will want Izumo. The other unit doesn't need it, but they can benefit from it if they need crit. So Jade, I think it's actually her best in slot, unless you're running her with Blade. Blade is not of the same path. They will not get the benefits from it. Then we've got Topaz and Feijiao. Topaz can benefit from it. She loves crit rate, and Ratio as well. Ratio would be typically paired with Topaz, so he'd benefit from it as well. Now we have the Sigonia set. This is catered towards one game mode, which is Pure Fiction. There's not much situations outside of that where you're really benefiting from it. Apocalyptic Shadow, which tends to only have up to like 5 enemies. MOC is very hit or miss. Sometimes it will just be 4. Sometimes you get in some summons, but it's never usually 10. Not very worth it. Sometimes in early on stages it is, but there's usually it caps out at 10 enemies. So if you're on the last enemy, you wouldn't even have the full stack. All your Pure Fiction heavy hitters, so Argenti, Himiko, Herta, Jade, they all like this set. 4 crit rate, 40 crit damage. 40 crit damage is huge. So that's what makes it kind of worth it. That's about it. Jade's on both because she can benefit from both. Next up, we've got Eternal Comedy. This one's a pretty good one to farm. We've got the Duran set, which buffs follow-up damage. It stacks, so you need a team with multiple follow-up damage dealers. But once you get those stacks up, they just stay, and you get 25% crit damage when there's 5 stacks. Every stack that you get gives you a 5% damage buff to your follow-up. Someone like Feijiao loves this set. Someone like Mose can really use this set. Topaz as well. Yunli, All these follow-up units can really benefit from it. March kinda can. It's not her best in slot. Retalent still provides a bit more damage, which is why it's her best in slot. Alongside that, you can farm the Forge set. This increases speed and it also increases break effect by 40% if you're hitting an enemy with fire damage weakness. Now, a lot of people get hung up on that last bit, but the reason why this set is actually so good in my books is just for the speed. It is rare to get speed. We now have 3 sets that offer speed, so someone can get up to 18 speed literally just from set bonuses. Much easier to run faster units, so I don't know why that would be a bad thing, excluding the couple of units where you can benefit from them being slow, i.e. Robin, Ron May. Tons more utility than people expect, but the best characters to make use of this set are your fire break damage dealers, or just fire break units in general. So we've got Himiko if you're running on a break build, Firefly obviously, Linkshot, it works really well on her, Gallagher, it works really well on him. I run it on like my supports as well, so my Tingyun for the extra speed, Sparkle, even Bronya, Hanya, i.e. my Hanya, case in point. This is a bit of a meme build, but my normal build is still above 200 speed, just because I like to do that. But she has 213, and that's not in game, right? That is because I'm running 2 speed sets, so the Hackspace set, the Ordeal set, on top of the Forge set. But yeah, if you want to do meme builds like that, that's a great set. If you just want extra speed anyway, just so you're hitting those checkpoints, like if you want to hit 160, 160 is pretty rough, especially early on. So this one's a really nice one to have. We're getting to the end of this now. So we've got Famished Worker. This offers the Lushaka set and the Wondrous Banana Amusement Park set. We'll start off with the Lushaka set. This one's actually really good. So it offers energy regen, which is nice, and it has no real activation requirement. So Vonwak needed speed, Penacony needed units of the same type. Whilst this one does have one, it just involves placement of characters. It doesn't matter who you pick. It's a great option for some of your supports. Extra energy regen lets them get their ults up faster, so they're providing more buffs or whatever. And it also buffs attack for your DPS unit. So someone like Blade won't benefit from it, because 1, he's not in the first slot, 2, he doesn't want attack. Someone like Yunli also will not. Same with Clara, because you kind of want them in the 2nd or 3rd slot, middle of the team, so they're getting hit more. However, even in your break team, so if you want to run this on Ranmei and you want your Firefly to have a bit more attack so they have a bit more break, that's great. But yeah, these are the units that benefit from this set. Sparkle as well usually pairs with a crit DPS that wants attack, so it works great on her. And then we have the Wondrous Banana Amusement Park set. This set is still struggling to find its footing for me. Topaz can benefit from this set, but she'd much rather Izumo because that gives crit rate. Jing Yuan can benefit from this set as well, but typically right now his best team involves Sparkle, and Sparkle gives like 100 to like 150 crit damage on like an endgame build. This extra crit damage isn't actually that great, so it's kind of not worth it. You can benefit from whatever other sets that I've mentioned, like Inert Sasato or something like that. That about does it for the sets and what you should farm. If you have any questions, leave a comment, join the Discord. Thanks so much for watching, and hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace. Dude, I am tired as shit. Huh.